Hello and welcome back to the Work Well podcast. Today in the show, I'm delighted to welcome Kate Moran. Kate is HubSpot's EMEA Culture Manager, managing a culture team across European offices in Dublin, Berlin, Paris, and Ghent to create a remarkable remote-first employee experience. The culture team are on a mission to inspire people to do their best work, how, when, and where they work best. Kate is also one of HubSpot's global energy project facilitators, where each quarter she helps teach employees how to make the most of their time and energy at home and at work. In the last 10 years, she has established 4 successful businesses in property, leisure, childcare, and coworking. Sit back and enjoy my conversation with Kate Moran. So Kate, hello and welcome to the Work Well podcast.
Hi Brian, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you getting on?
I'm grand. Yeah, it's definitely a different world we're in at the moment, but work is good and I've had a great week and it's Friday, so yeah, I'm feeling positive and looking forward to the weekend.
Fantastic. And I think you've recently returned from maternity leave. I'd say that was quite an unusual maternity leave.
Yeah, it was. I came back to work in June and I had left work I had my baby last September. So we had a little boy called Vinny, who is now over 1 and he is an absolute terror, but he's great. I love him. And yeah, I came back to work in June. It was really, really different, I suppose, for 2 reasons. For my maternity leave from March to June, it really wasn't the maternity leave I think I would have thought it might be and maybe like to have, but it wasn't all bad. And then coming back in June, coming back to a completely different way of working and a remote first workplace has been really interesting, definitely exciting, not without its challenges and certainly a steep learning curve for me, but I've really enjoyed being back at work.
And you're the EMEA Culture Manager at HubSpot. Maybe would you tell us a little bit about that role? First of all, maybe pre-COVID times, what that was like?
Sure. So I suppose if I think about before I went on my maternity leave, we have offices. So I'm our EMEA, which is our European culture program, our culture manager. We have a team of 6 and they're spread across our European offices, which are Dublin, Berlin, Ghent and Paris. We have a wonderful team. They're brilliant, and their primary role, I suppose, is to make sure our employees have the best working experience we can help them build, and also that we help people to get their best work done wherever they are. A big part of that as well is that I am part of our people operations team. I sit on a team of managers. So while I represent EMEA, we also have a JPAC manager and a US manager. And we have a brilliant new director called Moran who also started this year, and we report up to her. So there's a lot of planning, programming, a lot of innovation that goes on. And I suppose we're always trying to keep ahead of the curve when it comes to how we look after our employees and just really genuinely create a great work experience all around.
And I imagine, engagement and looking after your employees has changed quite a bit in recent months. How are you as a team and as a manager adapting to that?
Yeah, there's been some really interesting learnings in it. I think it's definitely different in how we can interact and engage with employees. So gone are the in-office conversations and the sort of quite informal check-ins. It was great to be able to have a passing or a water cooler conversation where you'd get feedback, easy feedback on a program you were doing, or some insight into challenges people were having. Whereas now, I suppose we need to be a lot more intentional about what we're doing, how we're getting information. Our programs are now very data driven, which is a great thing. We're really looking into actual employee feedback, so through surveys on how we solve and what people are looking for help with. And I think in how we communicate as well. So from 21 and from now on, I think ahead, we have no in-person events. So we have we used to do some great things, but at the same time, there's been some brilliant things happening virtually. So we've really had to learn how to create new experience for employees and build employee communities online and change how we communicate. It's been good. It's been good. I think we're still learning, but certainly feedback so far has been really positive, and I think if anything, people are always really appreciative of what we do and how we do our best to try and help.
And I would say that, you know, HubSpot are an innovative tech company, probably better set up than many to adjust to the world of remote working.
Yeah, I think we were really, really lucky. We were in a great place before COVID because we always encourage people to work at home, to work from home. We never set the expectation that people were always expected to be in the office. If anything, I suppose I'm nearly at HubSpot 4 years now, and one of the things I've always heard is that results matter more than the hours that we work or where we work. So that's been great, and I think it's resonated with employees that having to transition from the workplace back to home has been pretty smooth for most. I think the challenges come in terms of kind of social interactions and the opportunities people have to come together, or, you know, to have that sort of those in-team conversations. So we've had to, I suppose we need to really support people there. But no, it's been great. And actually HubSpot has been doing extremely well. If anything, I think they had their best sales quarter ever the last quarter, which sort of shows, I suppose, people can be as productive at home, and if not better, and I suppose adapt and just make things work.
Yeah, interesting to hear that. Yeah, well, not really surprising to hear that about the last quarter. And I love what you said there. You mentioned kind of the results focused, or this idea of a results only work environment. And I think that really is the future, isn't it? It's more about productivity than the amount of time a person is, you know, they're bums on seats, how many hours a day they're sitting at their desk.
Yeah, and I think HubSpot has always had values of promoting flexibility, autonomy, and always, I suppose, leaning into the idea that results do matter more than the hours you do it. And that's not by any means asking people to overwork or sort of disregarding, you know, the amount of hours people should be working. One of the things we do as well is we help people to identify how they can work really well, how they can be productive. In some offices, I suppose encouraging people to take breaks and time out isn't really seen, but I mean, if you want to work well, you have to give yourself a break. You have to give yourself a bit of time to rest and recharge. And I know, like, one of the things, I suppose, one of the emails that came in during this week, as it's US elections week, is we have Katie Burke, who's our head of people, would have sent an email, and it would have, I think the content in it really was encouraging people just to take time out. Obviously, it's a really tough time for everyone. I think particularly for our employees in the States, it's hard for people with COVID restrictions at the moment. And her email wasn't, hey, everyone, make sure you get your work done. It was, hey, everyone, this is a really, really hard week. Make sure you take time out. There is no expectations for any of you to be delivering 100% this week or last week or possibly the next one or the one after. So it's really, really good to see that kind of stuff coming out from our leadership, and yeah, it's appreciated.
I can imagine, yeah. And so you mentioned that email from Katie. Are there any kind of formal tools or resources that an innovative tech company like HubSpot are using? I mean, I know kind of Intel, for example, might have some kind of sophisticated software that if it's noticed that you're tapping away at your machine for 2 hours without a break, it'll encourage you to take a break. Anything formal like that, or is it kind of more informal?
No. There's no tracking and monitoring people's hours. It's more, I suppose, we encourage people to make sure that they themselves, and I think it's through reinforcing these messages and just reiterating that people need to take a break, you need to rest, you need to recharge. We do training every quarter. I'm one of our energy project facilitators, where we actually get people to sign up if they feel that they're having trouble, I suppose, taking time out, or if they feel that they're just not getting their work done, or that they need a bit of help. We do a bit of work with, we do a workshop where we help people identify when they're working best. And I think that's across all of our regions. So that's been really, really good. We encourage people to use things like inbox when ready, where obviously you put your inbox on pause and you bring it through. We have Slack, and we encourage people as well to obviously, so at the moment I have all of my notifications disabled. We use the little kind of icons on Slack, so it could be, I'm busy, I'm in a meeting, don't disturb me, it's family time, or whatever that may be. And I think we also really lean into our calendars. So on my calendar, you will see, I bring my daughter to school in the mornings. So my calendar is unbookable before 9 o'clock. Same in the evenings. I think we all very visibly will put into our calendars family time, don't disturb, and we don't. Our calendars automatically decline meetings that we're invited to. I think it's just continuing to lead that way and reinforce those kind of messages that it's okay, and actually that's the way people should protect their time.
Excellent. Yeah. So, very clearly there, you're setting boundaries, and I guess the technology is helping you to set those boundaries, which is something we're hearing a lot about. It's so important, isn't it? Especially when we're working from home, to set those boundaries between work life, between home life. So it looks like the technology is really supporting you in being able to do that.
Yeah, I think if you use it in the right way, it can support you, and it will support you to do that. Yeah. If you let everything come at you at the one time, I think we all know what happens then.
Yeah, really good point. And you mentioned the energy project there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I think you're a facilitator for that for HubSpot.
Yeah, so we do quarterly workshops with our employees who might have challenges switching off, structuring work, finding out how to be productive and how to get their best work done. So I think what we really teach them throughout that project, one of the key teachings is that you have to take breaks, and you have to give yourself time to rest and recharge. It's helping people identify what are those things that help them to do that. So for me, I may do 90 minutes of great work on a project, but I'll know I'll need to go and maybe call my mom or call a friend or go for a short walk. If I've had a really busy morning, I might schedule in a walk at lunchtime. It's about knowing what keeps you well, what helps you to be productive, and not pushing through where you're in this survivor mode and you're really just not getting your best work done because you're feeling under pressure. You can feel anxious, and then I think if that carries on, it brings you to a place where actually you really just can't work, and your head is just frazzled. And at that stage, where we're hoping people don't get to, you have no choice but to stop, because I think you actually can't work, and that's burnout, and it's where you get to that phase. And I think what we try our very best to do is to make sure that our employees just don't reach that burnout stage, and that they recognize, I need to sort of take myself out here. I need to have a little bit of a break, and then I come back and I can be productive. So yeah.
Sounds like an excellent project. And actually, in a very recent survey that I conducted amongst the community, burnout came in the top 3 of an area people wanted to kind of understand and learn a bit more about. So it's actually going to be a future webinar in the next couple of weeks. But it looks like something you're tackling kind of head on, and actually even before COVID, you were looking at this.
Yeah, we've been looking at it and teaching employees about this for probably the last couple of years. But I suppose one of the things that I've personally learned in coming back to work is I think we put so much pressure on ourselves. And then when we really look at it and we try and see, who's putting pressure for me to do this? Do I need to get this done now? Working in tech, I think naturally things move so fast that you try and get ahead, and you try and sort of you try and keep up really. But it's about paring it back, looking and really sort of creating realistic goals and working towards them in the right way. So yeah, it works. But I definitely need to remind myself, even myself, of these things every now and again.
I think we all need to do that, don't we? Yeah, even if we're a facilitator on the energy project or not. And talk to me a little bit about the culture code at HubSpot. It's something I've come across in what I do, quite often. It's kind of held up as a positive example for other organizations. But I imagine there's quite a few people listening in that haven't come across it. Could you tell us a little bit about the culture code and what it means at HubSpot?
Sure. It is a evergreen deck that lives online. It's very easily accessible. I think you can just search HubSpot's culture code and it's one of the first things that will come up. It was created by our founder, Dharmesh Shah, and it goes through our values. It goes through our company, how we interact with people, how we interact with one another, how we solve for our customers. And it's sort of what we live by. So I suppose, without meaning to sound cheesy, one of the things that it talks about within the code is that we expect all of our employees to have heart. And that goes across, so it's an acronym and it breaks out into H is for humble. We've got E is for empathetic, A is for adaptable or remarkable, T transparent. And no matter what we do, so if I took the T for transparent, for example, we can bring it back to our business, how we operate. And the transparent piece is for employees. We have access to so much information. Everything is published on we have an online wiki page. We're really kept informed of decisions. We're really part of decisions that are made. And I think it's really promoting the idea of how transparency builds trust, how it really drives productivity as well, and how it drives innovation, because we can see how people are thinking, what future plans are. And I think we're always kept up to date and we feel informed. So it definitely, it helps. And I think it's one of the attributes that makes our business and our employees successful.
And you mentioned that it was evergreen. So am I to take it that it's a living, breathing document that you as an internal employees, if you feel like there's something that's not right, you suggest changes and the founders kind of review that. Is that right? Is that how it works?
Yes, that's exactly how it works. So we don't make changes, but Dharmesh Shah himself makes changes. So it lives online, and he has made changes. So one of the most recent changes I know has been the E in heart used to be effective, was one of the words, and we changed it to empathetic, because I think we realized, and that was changed probably 3 years ago, and it helped us really promote messages of being empathetic to parents, for example, to different people with different challenges in the workplace. It worked, and it was a much better word than effective, I think, when we brought it back to our business and back to our teams and back to just at an individual level, how we treat people. And I know one of the other things then at the moment as well is that, obviously, as we're all living in a remote first world, our business has changed. So one of the things that has been updated in that culture deck is that it's never ever our culture has never been about the place, and that it's always been about the people. And I think that was a slide that was launched at our last company meeting, and it resonates because it's not about our amazing offices, and it's not about where you work, it's about who you work and what you do. So
Excellent. And it's, as you mentioned, it's online. It's there for people to look at, and I encourage people to take a look at it. It's got quite a few million views already. And as I understand it, it kind of works really well. If you have a potential new recruit looking to join HubSpot, the first thing you would do is direct them, well, here's our culture. Have a look and see if we are a good fit for you before you even maybe, come through the application process.
Well, that's it, exactly. Yeah, before anybody, I think, applies to HubSpot, or before they've even done an interview, we would absolutely expect that they have read our culture code, that it resonates with them. If it doesn't, you're not working in the right place, you're not going for the right job. So yes, it's something that we definitely do. And while we're interviewing as well, we always look for those attributes in heart as well. And it's not about fitting the culture or being the same as anybody else. If anything, I think what we look for is someone who is a culture add, who brings something really different to the team. We hugely look for candidates who are diverse. We try and build diversity and inclusion across everything that we do. So yeah, and that's across interviewing, it's across our teams, it's across our programs, it's across our business. So yeah.
Excellent. And you mentioned Dharmesh, one of the co-founders, and Brian is the other guy. I mean, looking from the outside in, it always felt that even though they're US based, it felt like they were quite approachable as leaders of the organization. Have they been doing anything in particular over the last couple of months, kind of, I don't know, to bring the overall HubSpot community together?
Yeah, look, I don't think they've been doing anything very different to what they've been doing before, and maybe this is part of the reason why we are in such a great place. They do something called it's EMEA, which is Ask Me Anything. It's a series where we schedule events, and I suppose you can ask any of our executives. It may be Brian, it may be Dharmesh, it may be anyone else leading any major change or just any massive department. And I think it's back to this transparency and accessibility. Any employee can ask any question. They're pre-submitted questions. Some are live and they're answered there and then. So it's a really good opportunity to learn about how leaders are thinking about the business, how they're thinking about moving, how they're thinking about change. And they've continued. So that's not something new that they're doing. But they have continued. One thing actually that has been new that we trialed and it was, I think, really successful, was we ran on our last company meeting, which was virtual. We would have had an in-company meeting and it would have been streamed previously. So this was a fully remote virtual meeting. We used Slack and we had over 4,000 employees interacting on Slack. So I think it was the day we nearly tested Slack's ability to withhold everybody's comments and interactions, but it was great and it was really good and it was good fun. And that's something new that I've seen happen and it worked really, really well.
Sounds great. Yeah. And have you been doing anything else yourself locally to support kind of engagement in around the Dublin and Irish team?
Not specifically Dublin. So I suppose if I took a global perspective, and then I can probably roll back a little bit to EMEA. So from a global perspective, just an example of how we might engage with employees online would be Halloween. Was last week. So previously we would have had maybe in office Halloween competitions, or we could have had pumpkin carving at lunchtime or whatever. It could be anything, who knows. But this year what we did was we leaned into Slack. We had a virtual competition, and actually what we saw was much better engagement from parents posting pictures of their children on their way off to school for their fancy dress, or not on their way to school. It could be at home or on their way, I don't know, out to celebrate on the road, I suppose, rather than trick-or-treating. We had people posting pictures of their home and how they decorated it, of themselves, even of photos from themselves last year. And we ran some competitions where winners were able to donate money to charities that aligned with our charitable goals, and that was great. We even had Brian Halligan posted a picture of himself dressed up from his at-home office. So it was nice, it was accessible, it was inclusive. It was a really good reminder that actually we can do a lot more online. So yeah, that's been great. And in terms of, if we roll back then to EMEA and how we've supported employees, one of the things we've noticed is that we have a lot of employees who have relocated from other countries. They've left, for example, families in Spain, if I take that as a country, and they've been here for the last couple of months. They may have onboarded remotely and expected to have onboarded in our office. They may have started back in March, where we moved to virtual onboarding only. They may be in an apartment on their own, or they may be in a shared apartment trying to work with a number of people at a table. We fully understand how difficult these times can be for them. So one of the things we did was we established a community on Slack. And we've been scheduling some remote events for them. So we've done some like murder mystery challenges. And I think really, actually, when you pare it right back, it's just bringing people together in one place, and it doesn't need to be a physical place, and allowing them to have conversations about how they're feeling, where they are, the challenges that they're facing, and just knowing that actually other people are in that same boat. So yes, that they're just two small examples of things that we've done that really haven't taken big budgets and haven't taken a lot of time.
Fantastic. Yeah, that sounds really interesting, particularly the murder mystery on Slack.
Yeah. Well, it was a murder mystery on Zoom, but Zoom. It was on Slack. Yes, and it was an ancient Egyptian murder mystery challenge. So we had I think we had over 50 employees attend, and they really enjoyed it. So that was great.
Brilliant. So no limits to the creativity then that you can do virtually. Lots that can be achieved.
I think you can do more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing some great examples. That's another brilliant one there. I'm hearing you talk of all the Zoom parties already being prepared now for in advance of Christmas. So I'm sure we'll have a few more examples.
Yeah.
Speaking of I attended a few of your really excellent cracking inclusion events last year. Obviously around the theme of diversity and inclusion. Any plans to bring that back, maybe in a virtual sense, or other plans in those that kind of area?
Yeah, I think so. We had I scheduled a couple of diversity and inclusion, the cracking inclusion events through the year. Our plan was to do one every quarter, which we did. And we really discussed, I think, so many different topics at each one. At the moment, there are no plans. It was a series through 2019. So we haven't actually done anything in 2020 yet. It's just been a bit of a whirlwind of a year. But in terms of diversity and inclusion, I think the cracking inclusion series were for employees and also external guests. And what we've really done is over the last couple of months and this year, we've taken our focus right back to our employees. And I think we're really knuckling in on talking about diversity and inclusion at work, particularly when Black Lives Matter was a massive, still is a huge topic. We rolled out an anti-racism training across all of our offices for every employee, and the feedback actually has been incredible. So there was a huge amount of work that went into that. It was developed by our learning and development teams, not my team. But our job is to promote it. Our job is to be culture champions. Our job is to really to understand all of the content that's in that, and to, I suppose, really bring it back to everything we do. So we are working harder than ever to recognize that all programs that we run, the language that we use, that it's not exclusionary, and that everything comes back to inclusion and how we make people feel included in a remote first world. And really, I suppose the empathy piece comes back here as well. It's a really hard year for a lot of people.
Yeah, well said, and totally understandable how you've put the the focus back internally this year in particular. I mean, I don't think anyone can can complain about that. It's totally understandable given everything that's going on, and it sounds like some really quality and interesting work that you're doing there.
Yeah, and actually, one of my colleagues in the States, Ashley Ladd, is developing a diversity, inclusion and belonging team. So they will be rolling out more global projects. And I think there's going to be some great things to come for employees. I'm not sure how much we'll do externally, but look, watch this space.
I will indeed. Yeah, that sounds great. I'll definitely keep an eye out for that. What does the future of work look like in your opinion? I mean, HubSpot, you've got a lovely office in Dublin. You have actually a brand new office, which I think officially opened, but I believe everyone is pretty much still working remotely. What will the future of work look like for HubSpot, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the conversations we're having at the moment is that there will be a different future of work. I don't think work will ever be the same again. I don't think our office will ever be the same again. We have already asked employees to start thinking about how they would like to work in the future. We've offered employees options from being at work, being at home, or being flex, which means you could be both. And we also continue, obviously, to offer fully remote roles. So I think maybe in the past, where employees would have been encouraged and certainly would have worked from home, I would have worked from home, for example, every Friday. And that was my thing. And it was my day for being productive and getting my heavier work done where I needed to be undistracted. But I think in the future, it's nearly going to flip. I think the day that you're in the office is going to be the day where you're intentionally, you just have different goals to achieve. And I think, if anything, for me, I will most likely be working more from home. I think what we're hearing from most of our employees is that that's also the case, but that they do want to be in the office and they do want to see people. They do want to have those social interactions. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting how it changes. I think, if anything, I think we're predicting maybe we might see a third of footfall back into the office of what we would have seen before. So obviously our carbon footprint is going to be reduced significantly. People are going to travel less. People are going to have much more time at home and more family time. But yeah, I think there's still some pieces that are moving, and we're just waiting to see. But we're speaking about going back to our office when our office is green. And at the moment, I suppose we can say our office is red right now, right? We're in level 5 restrictions. For us, our office might be orange when we can open it again with social distancing. And really, even with that, it's a very different workplace. It's a desk, and it's a hot desk, if anything. And then when offices are green, hopefully we'll have our office back, which is this beautiful place where I think people really enjoy being. But it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same as before. It's not a bad thing either.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. Yeah, and you're echoing there what some previous guests have said. It seems that the flex option, the ability to work from home a couple of days a week, in the office maybe a couple of days as well, really does seem to be the preferred option for the vast majority of people. Some, a small minority maybe want to work from home full time, a small minority full time in the office, but that vast majority seem to really kind of appreciate that flexible option.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think the way I suppose meetings might have happened in the past, there's a lot less meetings happening. There's a lot more asynchronous communication going on. There's a lot of online productivity happening that doesn't take people to be in a room or in a place at the same time. So I just think the nature and the way we work and how we work, if anything, I feel people have become a lot more effective, a lot more productive, a lot more thoughtful about the meetings that we're scheduling and what we do with our time. Otherwise, we'd be sitting on desks and looking at screens for hours on end a day, and nobody wants that.
No, I don't think they do. And you see, you've definitely touched on. So you've got a busy work life. You mentioned Vinny. You've got another, I think, a young daughter at home as well. How are you managing your own well-being at this moment in time? The family, the work, all the commitments.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think I have definitely had my ups, downs, go fast and literally do nothing moments. Yeah, I've had an interesting couple of years. In March I found out my dad has stage 4 cancer, so that was really hard to hear, and it's been really hard for our family to deal with. Obviously then coming back to work in June has been a massive change. COVID hitting in March was interesting. I don't think I've ever spent so much time with my own family, but not bad. I think really interesting learnings, and if anything, I think I appreciate the small things more than ever. In my own life, I think things have been busy. My husband's opened a co-working space, a side project of his in March. while I was on maternity leave. I helped him with that, and I think that adds pressure. I took on a new course. I decided at some stage that I wanted to go back to college. So I have just finished a change management course that I really enjoyed, but it was a commitment of time that I made and I had to keep, that I suppose I didn't foresee the world we would be in. So I did that, and I also, it's busy. We work and we go home, and there's meal times and there's dinner times, and then there's the weekends, and it has been a little bit hectic. I feel like a lot of time has been sort of mashed into one big giant piece. It's not all bad, but I've realized I had to take time out recently and just give myself a bit of a breather. I've also started running. My sister has challenged me to try and clock up, I think, 60k in the next couple of weeks. So that is something I'm doing and I'm really enjoying. And I think, it is about, you can't really look after other people and you can't be your best self unless you actually recognize you need to take care of yourself too. So yes, I am intentionally doing that.
Well done, well done. And first of all, really sorry to hear about your dad. I mean, there's never a good time to hear news like that. But I mean, March, when we're all kind of going through these really tough changes, all the restrictions, of course, it must have been particularly challenging at that time. And then add into that, I mean, I'm a big fan of co-working spaces, but I don't think any business, well, maybe a few exceptions, it wasn't a good time to launch any business, I guess. Another challenge. So it must have been a pretty rough time in that period. And of course, you had the return to work coming up as well. But great to hear that you're being intentional about looking after number one and the running and taking a little bit of time off as well, because that is incredibly important, as you mentioned.
Yeah. I think if you don't do it yourself and if you don't lead by example, you can't really tell other people that it's what they should be doing either, can you?
Exactly. Listen, Kate, really well said, and thanks so much for your time today. All the best to you and your family for the future. Where can people go to find out more about you and the work you're doing?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, so I'm Kate Moran. It should be easily findable. But then also we have HubSpot's webpage. Our careers page talks about the different programs that we run, our diversity and inclusion initiatives. It's a great place for resources and information. So HubSpot.com, and just if you scroll across, you'll see all the different options there.
Kate, thanks so much. Great. Enjoy the weekend. Take care.
So
we'll catch up soon.
Chatting to you as always.
Take care.
Bye, Brian.